people out there talking about, well, the Great Awakening just started. Okay, so we have the Christ comes to this planet, incarnated through through impregnation into Mary, who was raised by in the scenes, which do all that, the meditation, all that, right? You learn about these scenes, preparing the vessel from the Creator to birth the Christ. Okay, that's happening. Then what goes on through the life of the Christ? The lost journey of Christ. Jesus, episode 21. That's an amazing episode. And then through this 45 days we're talking about today, from the crucifixion to the ascension, what has transpired since then like that to initiate the Great Awakening? If not that, I know of nothing else.
No, the Lamasery says, there's many assets that signify light enters the darkness and knows it not. One, without doubt, was the Nativity. There was no doubt about it. But even the Nativity is trumped by what happens the 40 days after the resurrection, what Christ set into motion. And not only that, he stayed around for two reasons: to appear to as many people, to show them this kind of Superman body, Wonder Woman kind of body that could basically overcome the laws of nature. And not overcome the laws of God, but overcome the laws of nature. Gravity didn't affect him. The elements didn't affect him. He could walk on water. He could fly through the air. He could start a fire. He could put a fire out. I mean, he had everything beyond what Enoch and Elijah had put together. I mean, it was amazing. But what was also him doing, he was being the true mentor master. He was sticking around because within 2 weeks, what happens? Well, Claudius. Now, let's remember who this Claudius Centurion was. Let me paint a bigger picture for who. He's a Gentile, but he's the one that takes the body of Jesus off the cross. Think about what happened to him when he's taking this. And as he's taking this off the cross, he says, this man hurt no one. And where is everybody today? And of course, there was Mary and John crying tears. It's raining now. So after the earth parts, he said that rain is coming down. I mean, it's like a typhoon for hours and hours, and everybody's gone. You see fires that came from the center of earth. They're all smoking now because the rain's putting those fires out, right? He takes him off the cross. He carries him to the tomb, and the apostles that are there, they're following him on. But then, because he is a centurion, and it is Pilate who is his superior, they take 7 men. Now think about how big this stone is when it takes 7 gladiator centurions to put that stone against there. They wanted to make sure that nothing happened. But that moment that he had with Jesus and the next 2 weeks, Jimmie, that will mature into a faith. And so what happens is 2 weeks later, the centurion decides to fast, and he's up on the rooftop, and an angel appears to him and says, you need to get Simon Peter, the fisherman, to come visit you. And that's what happens. Simultaneously, Simon Peter's in another city. He's on a roof, and an angel sets up to him, showing him all kind of different foods to eat. And he's hungry because he's been fasting for 4 or 5 days. And he says to an angel of the Lord, no, I cannot eat food like that because that's unclean. And the angel says, if God blesses it, There's no such thing as unclean food. So that's part of the message. But then all of a sudden, Cornelius is told by the angel to send some of his workers, some of his care, and go fetch Peter. So he does. He tells Peter who he is. Peter comes back. Now all of a sudden, you're in a centurion household. And this centurion carries a lot of weight. I mean, he would be the most incredible networker gatekeeper you could have because he has most of Rome behind him. He has property everywhere. In his own household, he has 60 people working for him in the Judea household. And then he's got the elders of the synagogue that respect him, but now he has the early followers of the Christ respecting him. So when Peter comes in, the centurion, this massive man, 6'6", 275 pounds, could be a defensive end for any NFL team. He falls down and prostrates himself before Peter, and he's kissing Peter's feet, just like in India, ancient India, you would see a chela kissing a guru's feet because that was respect. Right. Immediately, Peter picks him up. He says, I am just a man like you. I'm not the Christ. He tells him. And then he looks at him, and then all of a sudden, both their visions come together from the angels. And he realizes the food thing also meant to take the blessings of the Christ to the uncircumcised. That right. It was time to take, and what better person to make that pivot than the centurion's household, right? No, Think of you're launching a network marketing company, you want to take it to the basement of the most influencer, right? Well, the centurion was that kind of person. He had respect from all three communities, which is big, right? So what happens? Peter goes to one knee, like Jesus, and he's thanking the Father for pouring out the blessings through his Son. And through his Son, now all of a sudden we have something else that happens that never happened. 60 plus people at one time are anointed by the Holy Spirit, and at least they go into second birth. Now, these 2 weeks are significant because of the first 2 weeks.
Now, these weeks, now this is after the ascension, right, of the Christ?
So that this is part that people don't understand. This is not. This is the part that they get wrong. Jesus is still walking around, and part of the reason he's staying, as I said before, is twofold: to show people the kind of body he has, but he wants to see, are the apostles duplicating what he was doing for 3 years? Because for 3 years, we remember, he was walking around Shakti-potting everybody. People touched his clothing, healed, right? He was doing it, but it was still being done one-on-one. Now, this whole thing, Jimmie, goes to a whole new level. It's such a new level that a Lama, remember, that had already been around 1,300 years, is now changing the way they're going to teach because of the significance of the 40 days after the resurrection. And that's the Great Awakening. That's what started the Great Awakening. That, remember, Jesus told them in the Last Supper, he said, these things I do, ye shall do, and greater things you will do, because I ascend to the Father, and I go prepare a place for you.